Welcome back to another episode of the Booth Review. And today we have a very special guest, five-time All-Star, five-time world champion, and current color commentator for the Yankees, Paul O'Neill. Welcome to the show.
Guys, how are you? It's good. It's opening day around the corner here, so we're good to go.
It's exciting stuff for sure. So the Yankees are obviously famous for their bleacher creatures, and they're some of the best and the most passionate fans in all of sports. What was it like to play for a team with such a passionate fan base like that? And what was the biggest challenge in playing in front of that crowd?
Well, I mean, the bleacher creatures were such their own entity out in right field. And, being the right fielder, I was closest to them. So, it was a great thing. You'd see the same faces, the same people there day in and day out. And it was just like going to the baseball game for the player, too, because you would look up and see the same people. And those were the guys that were there day in and day out. And, the biggest challenge is obviously is New York. I mean, New York expects a lot out of its teams, a lot out of the players. But you know what? Sometimes as a player that you even feed off of it. So the media can be tough, and expectations are always tough. So, again, when you're part of a good team, which the Yankees usually put on the field year in and year out, you're expected to do great things. And this year's no different.
Yeah. So you were a legend for the Yankees. How did it feel when you were enshrined into Monument Park with the likes of Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, and Joe DiMaggio?
That's when certain things really kind of sink in. I went through an unbelievable time there, believe me, being able to play in the late 90s and win those World Series. And when you're going through it, you don't really let it sink in until you retire. And then you realize, how fortunate you were to be part of those great teams that won World Series. And, it hasn't been done since. I mean, you win 4 World Series out of 5 years. It's pretty impressive stuff. But when you're going through it, you don't really think about it. But now when you sit back and you see that, how long it's been since teams have done that, it kind of sinks in. But then, the Monument Park thing, kind of on the same page, it doesn't sink in until you're out of the game, and then the Yankees do something special like that, and then it's so eye-opening, and you're so much more relaxed because you're not out there playing. You don't have anything else to prove. Your family's part of it. It was an unbelievable day, and believe me, there's not a day in my life that I go through that I don't think about how lucky I was to be able to play for the Yankees.
So you were obviously on the Yankees before Jeter came into the league, and you saw him come in and really put the entire league on notice. How did his leadership style develop as he became a veteran and won multiple World Series? And how did a transcendent player like that affect your career and your development as a player?
Well, it's funny because, I came over and my first year was 1993. And, the team started to turn around, and the Yankees had not been relevant in baseball for a while. So, 94 during the strike year, we were in first place. We had a good team. 95, we went to the playoffs. Actually, Jeter, Posada, Pettit were all brought up to watch the playoffs, not being eligible to play, but you learn from that. And then in 96, obviously his rookie year, opening day, he was named the shortstop from Joe Torre. And, here you are with the team that's expected to win, and you've got a rookie shortstop, and there's a lot of question marks. And, to say that I saw him become Derek Jeter, the Hall of Famer in the first day, that's very hard. But, he got off to a great start in Cleveland, made a couple great plays, hit a home run, and he was really off to the races. And again, you had Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettit, Jorge Posada, and Derek Jeter that were all part of which they call the core 4 that really stepped into a team that was just ready to win and absolutely took off as a group, as a team, and that core 4.
Yeah, you guys really got to see them grow firsthand. Do you guys think you're the greatest dynasty in baseball history?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question now. I mean, when you look back at how many years the team has won recently and not put up World Series, To be part of those teams, it's arguably one of the better teams. 1998 being the best team that I was ever part of. I mean, our total record was 125-50. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But for me to say, hey, we're the best team, that was the best team I ever played for, no doubt about it. But when you start thinking of the likes of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and some of the things they did, how you can compare, that team to those teams is very hard. But one thing that you can keep in mind is they were all New York Yankees. And that just shows the tradition and how great this organization has been at impacting baseball.
So how did you guys feel in the preseason in '98? Did you guys feel like it was a preconceived fact that you were going to win it all, or how did you guys feel?
Well, that's one thing about New York. Now, once you win the World Series in '96, you have the parade, then you're expected to win in '97. And we had a very, very tough loss against Cleveland, the Indians in '96 or '97. Then '98, every single year when that team is put together and kind of kept together by Mr. Steinbrenner, that team is expected to win. And it's not expected to make the playoffs. It's expected to win the World Series. And so every year that was our intent. And I can't say that a lot of cities put pressure on their players to win not only games, but win the World Series. But that's the mentality of playing in New York. And I don't know that 98, 99, and 2000 happened if we didn't have that loss in '97, because it's a reminder of how quick it can go. You have one bad series, you have one bad play, you're going home, and you don't get that opportunity to get to the World Series. You have to go back, go through the off season, go through the whole season just to get back to that point.
You mentioned how you played right field. Do you ever train with Aaron Judge on working on his right field defense? And
I talk about Aaron Judge, and I talk to him a lot. I saw him come up through the minor leagues. I saw him into the major leagues, and what an impact player his rookie year. And I really don't think that Aaron Judge gets enough credit as being a complete baseball player. Everybody thinks of him, how far he hits home runs, and how big he is. Aaron Judge is a phenomenal outfielder. He's got a great arm. He has great instincts. He runs the bases well. He is a team leader. Rumor has it he might be the Yankees' next team captain, which does not happen a lot. So Aaron Judge, to me, is a complete baseball player. And a lot of times that's forgotten because he hits these mammoth home runs.
Yeah. Did you know he was going to be this good when he was in the minor leagues and training early?
Well, you knew that he was going to have the power. And you knew that, if you look at his skills in the outfield and how athletic he is, even at that size, sure, he just on paper is going to be a great player. And, he has had some issues lately, the last couple of years with injuries. So it's a big challenge for him going into this year to be able to stay on the field. And, he is the leader. He is the face of the Yankees at this point. But his impact on this team, a lot depends on him being able to stay healthy and take the field day in and day out.
What were your impressions of spring training this year, and who do you think could be a breakout player for the Yankees this year and maybe help in a run to the World Series?
Well, spring training was kind of back to normal. Obviously, all the fans weren't there, but they had a full spring training. Pitching should be good coming into the season. I don't know that you're going to have a young player be an impact player. I mean, Frazier, obviously, it's just his first year where he's getting an opportunity to play every day in left field. But I see guys having bounce back years as being Gary Sanchez offensively. Obviously, he's not a one-something hitter, which he was last year. And Gleyber Torres, I think last year, the 50 games, the smaller schedule, really hurt him because you saw him get hot in the playoffs. But those are two guys that I think could have bounce back years and really put this team over the top.
You think the pitching? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just going to ask.
Oh, God, sorry.
I was going to ask if you think the pitching is going to be able to hold up over the 162-game season.
You know what? It's Garrett Cole is their number one, and he doesn't shy away from it. He's a guy that takes the ball, and he's a dominant pitcher. He didn't really have an adjustment period in New York last year. This is a big thing for him to take the ball on opening day. Now, Kluber, Tyon, these guys have not thrown pitches in the major leagues in a couple of years, but they're very capable of going out and rattling off, double-figure wins and make this pitching staff solid. Herman looks really good. Montgomery looks really good. The bullpen has always been stacked, even though you're going to, lose Zach Britton for a lot of the year. Their pitching should be one of the strong points. And anytime that you have pitching to keep you in the game day in and day out with the offense that they have, the ability to score runs, that's why you're thinking that, they should have so many wins in the American League East.
What were your thoughts on the 50-game season last year? Do you think it negatively impacted some guys? And do you think that's really a full picture of last year? And do you count that as a real legitimate season?
Well, I mean, it is a season, and it ended up being, an exciting postseason. But I think that some players were hurt by it. Torres, I brought him up. He got off to a terrible start, and then he didn't have the number of games to really catch up as good as he is offensively. Now, there are some teams that I thought benefited from it. If you look at the Marlins, they went from losing 100 games to making the playoffs. In a short season, they were able to stay close and make the playoffs. That's an unbelievable thing. So, the full season usually, as big as a grind as it is, it brings the best teams to the top because it's just so many games. And that's why, going into a full season this year, that the Yankees are favored in the East.
And the funny thing is, in 2019, the Nationals were 19-31 to start the season, and they end up winning the World Series. So it's like they had a full, if they didn't have the full season, they wouldn't have made the playoffs.
Yeah, again, you go to that season and everything was kind of amplified on because you didn't have time. It wasn't the marathon that 162 games usually is, where you get off to a bad April. Hey, you know what? You're good enough to recapture and get back into the race. But when you have that limited of games, that amount, that sometimes a bad start, both, individually for players and teams, you didn't have time to catch up.
So the Nationals were sort of on a slide last year and really did not perform the way they did on the previous World Series season. What do you obviously they lost Rendon, and that's a big bat for them. Do you think that could maybe improve this year and maybe make a playoff push?
No doubt. I mean, Davey Martinez, who manages for them, was a good friend of mine. I played with Davey in Cincinnati, and I have no doubt that that team, Scherzer, one of the star pitchers in the league. Strasburg, hopefully get him back healthy. Rendon, sure, it is a big blow to lose a guy like that, but they have a lot of players, and you don't win World Series by accident. So to be able to close the book on last year, get out there, start playing, I think you're going to see a much better Nats team.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You sound like a National fan.
I am. I grew up my whole life in DC like Pat, but Pat's a Yankees fan. My mom is actually from the Bronx, and she grew up going to Yankees games all the time.
Nice.
What other sleeper teams do you think we should look out for this year, besides maybe the Nationals?
It's always funny, and the Yankees open up with Toronto. I mean, that team, I don't know if you didn't call them a sleeper. I mean, they have 3 or 4 star players that are all coming together in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette and Biggio. I mean, these guys are going to be really, really good players. Now, their pitching, Ryu is going to throw tomorrow. Their pitching is somewhat suspect, but that team is going to score a lot of runs. I don't know that their pitching can hang in the East, but it seems like Tampa Bay always finds a way.
Yeah.
So you can never count them out. Obviously, San Diego has really built their team up, and now that the Dodgers have got over the hump of being a World Series champion, they're still as good as ever. But there's a lot of teams coming in this year that will get better. And, there are some teams that are still in that rebuilding mode, but some teams are just going to win. And the Yankees are one of those teams.
I mean, it's a pretty stacked division, and the Red Sox could easily go on a run. Their offense is pretty stacked,
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I agree with you 100%. When you look at like Martinez and he's not going to have the type of year he did last year offensively. Yeah. Another player that didn't have the number of bats that he needed to catch up offensively. And, they could be a sleeper in the East, there's no doubt about it. And Cora being back as manager, that has a lot to, a lot of good vibes because last time he left there, they were really good.
So we had Cal Ripken on the podcast a few weeks ago, and we asked him about Fernando Tatis Jr. and his when he hit a home run on a 3-1 count, I think, and they were up like 10 runs.
Yeah.
And we asked him what he thought about the unwritten rules of baseball. And I was also curious about how you feel about that.
Well, those rules, believe me, have been rewritten because in the old days, if you did that, you wouldn't want to go to the plate again because something would be coming at you. But as many runs as the teams score this day and age, it's the rules have been revised a little bit. But there are times where you don't do 9 runs, 10-run lead. You just don't do things. You don't steal bases. You don't spin in the box trying to hit the ball out because you just get through the game. You've already kind of put the game away, play the game out. There's always tomorrow, and you don't want bad blood as far as a hitter taking a swing at 3-0 like in a 9 or 10-run game. You don't want that hanging over your head day in and day out every time you play that team again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about Gary Sanchez potentially breaking out, but his spring numbers weren't that good and he was striking out a lot. Do you think he'll turn around the season? I mean, his swing's a little off or something.
Well, he got off to a great start in the spring, and then he started to lose it towards the end. But, he has so much talent and so much power offensively that, I think it's imperative that he gets off to a great start in April. Because as a player, when you have a bad year, you kind of come back in the next year and those thoughts are still going through your head. And once you get off to a good start, then you can tell yourself, okay, that was last year. So I think it's really, really important for him to get off to a great start in April. And obviously he's not a guy that needs to be the whole offense. I mean, you've got Stanton, you've got Judge, you've got LeMahieu. So just a guy that needs to, have his swings and not carry anybody. So, he's done a lot of work and, his swings to me, I did a couple of spring training games at the end, still look pretty good. So it's all about, with his leg kick, it's all about a balance. And if he gets out there too front or he gets, home run happy where he tries to pull everything, then he can get himself in trouble. And, he has such a gift as far as being able to drive the ball out of the ballpark to any parts of the field. If he uses right center field in Yankee Stadium, he's going to be successful.
Also, I'm a very big Luke Voit fan, and I was wondering if Yankees fans should be worried about his injury or not.
Well, I mean, anytime you hear about an injury, especially with him, because he brings a lot of intensity to the team. And, he led the league in home runs last year. So you're taking that out, but you're putting Bruce in there, who they brought in. So hopefully he can give them a couple months. But Luke Voit is a guy I love to watch. Like I said, he brings a lot of intensity. He played with injuries last year. He had a bad foot, but hopefully this is not something that's gonna be lingering on. He gets it taken care of, and maybe mid-May, late May. He's back in the lineup where, again, with a full season, you're still going to have a lot of time as a player to do good things.
I just have one last question. So I've always been fascinated about this. When you guys see someone in high school, how do you judge those prospects? Is it about bat speed? Is it about how fast they can throw? Is it about intangibles? Like, what type of stuff do the scouts look for their judgment.
You know, it's
process.
funny you asked that because I've told many people, I mean, I can see players at the major league level and say, you know, this guy is going to become something. You know, scouting is an art of its own. I mean, to look at a kid in high school and show me where his ceiling is very hard, because a kid that is really, really good in high school really stands out because a lot of the kids in high school aren't very good. And you have to kind of judge how these kids are going to be when they start playing against kids their own caliber as far as talent wise. But I've seen many kids, number one picks out of high school, don't make it through A ball or double A. And then